All right, YouTube videography fans, I'm going to show you my camera rig that I cobbled together with some fairly inexpensive components that I got from Amazon. When I first started off using this Canon video camera, I just had a bracket on the bottom of it to hold a microphone, but then I evolved into a little bit nicer rig. Mainly because the LCD screen on that Canon is really almost impossible to see outside in daylight. It's okay indoors, but when you're outside, you really cannot see that LCD video screen very well at all. So what I did was, I got two camera grip handles. They're real inexpensive. I think they were maybe $10 or something. And when you get these handles, they're threaded. The bottom and the top have 1/4 threads. And the way they come, when you get them, they have a little stud screwed into the top, a 1/4 stud that you can screw into your camera. And of course I didn't need that. So I took that stud out. If you're going to use these handles for a camera, though, what I recommend you do is take the stud out. It's got an Allen socket, so you can use a little Allen wrench to get it out. But take it out, thread it into your camera, then put a drop of Loctite just at the very end. Don't get it up here near the camera, but put it right down here at the very end. And then screw it back into the handle so that this stud is fixed in there with Loctite. So when you go to unscrew it from the camera, you won't leave the stud behind. Just Loctite that stud into there if you're going to use it. I didn't use it, I took it out. At the bottom they had a little screw in there with a key ring, and I just took that out. So I wound up, this handle has a 1/4 thread at the top and the bottom, which I utilized to fashion this bracket. These are just two flash clamps. Flash brackets is all they are. And they're also quite inexpensive. You need to get ones that are long enough to hold all this stuff. Don't get little short ones, get the longest ones. And you don't have to use flash brackets. You could use long Arca Swiss clamps. You could get some 1/4" aluminum bar stock and cut it and drill it with a bunch of holes drilled in it if you wanted to do that. But these flash brackets worked real well because they already had some 1/4 threaded holes. They have the sliding slot. They got a 1/4 hole in the middle that I attached my Arca Swiss clamp to. Got an Arca Swiss plate, excuse me, not clamp, that I bolted on there so I can put this into all my Arca Swiss equipment. And by utilizing the various attachments points, I put on a light. I put a cold shoe down here on the bottom, just a regular cold shoe, so I can mount my microphone. And actually I'm going to move this cold shoe to the other side, because if I use my big microphone, it fouls this handle, so I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to move that cold shoe over to this other side. And then I've got my 7-inch ultra bright monitor, and I got the very high brightness one so that I can actually see what I'm doing when I'm outdoors. I think that's the 2200 nit. In fact, I know it is. A lot of these other monitors are not quite that bright. And I've taken this thing outside in bright sunlight, and you can see exactly what you're doing, far better than you can see with this little screen. All you see on that little screen is reflections. You can't see a darn thing. And then I've got my Tascam audio recorder that I can connect microphones to if I want to use that. So I've got my audio recorder, my video monitor, my light. I mounted the light and the monitor with these little quick release Condor quick releases. I think there's one called Cinelock, which is really expensive, but these are a lot more affordable. And instead of having to screw your equipment onto a post, in fact, I could have used that 1/4 stud that was on there to screw my light on, and I could have also used it to screw my monitor onto if I left that stud there. But these quick releases are way easier to deal with. And when you're screwing something like this onto a stud, you could drop it and break it. So these quick releases are awesome. They're by Condor, and they're really affordable. And you can just pop those things on and off. If you don't need the light because you're outdoors, take it off. If you don't want to use the monitor because you're indoors, pop it off. Now I wanted my camera a little further back. So what I did was I took a 140mm Arca Swiss clamp and fastened it down here with the flash bracket screw and mounted the camera, further back, so that when I open the screen, it's a touch screen. Instead of having the touch screen up here, kind of being blocked, my view being blocked by my audio recorder with the touch screen up here, by pushing the camera back, by using this long Arca Swiss plate, it lets me get this screen where I want it. And you don't have to use an Arca Swiss plate. You could just use a flash bracket. You could take just a piece of cheap steel mending plate from the hardware store and drill a couple holes in it, make it the right length and position it where you want it, and accomplish the same thing. But I had the Arca Swiss plate laying around anyway, a 140mm plate, so I just used it. But you don't have to use an Arca Swiss plate if you don't want to. So that mounts right onto my tripod, real easy. If I want to hand hold it, you just unscrew my clamp and run around and use it. It's pretty heavy with all this gear on it, but I have used it like this. I've got another video on my channel here talking about this Neewer fluid head. You might want to look at that. This is a very inexpensive head, and after you modify it the way I showed in my other video, it is just smooth as silk. Boy, it's like butter the way this thing moves. It does not move that way when you get it from the factory. It's got some horrific grease in here that's actually more like glue and all these pivot points. There's a pivot point there, a pivot point there, and then that pivot point. You have to take the thing apart. I've got it on my other video. But that's only 35 bucks. And it's a really nice video, very smooth video pan head. So with some inexpensive grips, a couple of flash brackets. Oh, and I put a ball mount up here for my Tascam because I needed to move the Tascam, this way a little bit. So I just put the ball mount on there so I could, get this out in front of me where I could access it. I didn't want it facing up where I couldn't see the controls. I want the controls facing directly to me. So that's why I mounted it on this ball mount. These quick releases, you'll find a lot of uses for these things. You ought to get a whole bag full of them. And then when I want to, I can put my Canon DSLR in there and use it with my Canon if I want to do that. I don't always want to shoot video with this HRF 800, HFR 800. Sometimes I want to use my Canon EOS 7D, and it'll fit right in there. I can put another Arca Swiss clamp on top here if I want to, and just clamp it right on there. But that's a real inexpensive rig. It's very handy. holds everything. Smooth as can be on this Neewer video head. And it's easy to just pop it off and go. And what I might do is I might reorient the microphone mounts so I can put some kind of stand brackets down here so I can set that down. I'll probably fashion some kind of brackets for that purpose. So if I'm running around holding it and I need to lay it down, you know, I can set it down without damaging anything. But yeah, get some cheap grips, a couple of flash brackets, use whatever kind of mounts you want. You can drill into these slots and then tap that with a 1/4-20 tap if you want to make some fixed screw points. That's easy to do. If you don't know how to drill and tap, look it up on YouTube. It's a snap. And that's a good skill to have because you might want to drill and tap some 1/4-20 holes. Not just on this rig, but you could have a lot of times and places where you might want to fasten something that doesn't have a 1/4-20 hole. You can make one with a drill bit and a tap. Anyway, there's my rig. Just thought I'd show that to y'all. Let me just add a quick addendum here. I noticed on the first part of the video I had the bottom part of this out of frame. So I'll just show a couple quick things that weren't visible in that video. I was saying before about how I'm going to move this cold shoe because when I use my big microphone, it fouls this panning and tilting handle. So I'm going to put that cold shoe over here. When I use the little microphone, it's fine. And the other thing I mentioned before, you couldn't see it in the frame, I was talking about this Neewer video head. And it's got 3 pivot points behind these blue plates. There's a little Allen head bolt there that you can take out and get these pivot points disassembled so you can re-grease them. And as I said, I've got another video that shows that. So if you want to see about getting this video head, very inexpensive, works great once you modify it, works terrible when you get it out of the box. But I just thought I'd get this stuff in frame and show you what I was talking about. If I put my microphone over here, it won't foul this handle, but over here it won't. So just a couple quick edits to show what I was talking about that I had out of frame.